Hello, everyone. This is Professor DePaulo. Welcome you back to Psych 265 Research in Psychology, fully online. And today we're going to be talking about how to write the title page, the abstract, and the reference page of the APA manuscript. So, this is the final writing assignment. And after you submit this and get feedback, you will then be doing the complete rewrite. So, the final paper is basically a rewrite of the entire paper, right? The title page, the abstract, the introduction, the methods, the results, the discussion, the references, right? So that's the revised paper. It's going to be the entire paper, and basically it's revised from what I've been giving you feedback throughout the semester. So you need to make the changes that I suggest, and you need to add the results section, which I already posted onto Brightspace, which I asked you just to basically copy and paste it into the final document. And that will be the revised final paper. And then I will be grading the revised paper as a big portion of your grade, and then also the rough draft. So I average out the rough drafts and the final paper, and they get you your final paper grade. So this is the last section of the paper, and it's not that difficult to rewrite, although the abstract can be a little bit tricky. But we're going to start with the title page. So you're going to format a title page according to APA style, 7th edition, and a student title page. So this is a little bit different from a professional submission. This is a student submission. Because you're a student, I figured that this is probably more relevant to submit. So here's the format. You're going to come up with the title. It's going to be a unique title of the manuscript. And that title should be 7 to 15 words long. You don't want it to be so long that it's very hard to kind of even remember the title, but you don't want to make it so short that it doesn't look like the title, right? So between 7 and like 15 words is a good frame of reference. You're going to have a page number in the upper right header of your document. Then you're going to have the title. You're going to have the author, which is you, right? Your full name. The department affiliation. So it's going to be Department of Social Sciences at Borough of Manhattan Community College. The course, which is Psych 265, Research in Psychology. You don't need to put the section, just the course and the title of the course. My name, the instructor, and the due date below, which will be the date the assignment is due for this class. So I'm going to show you kind of how I would work through this, right? So I always like having, both a couple of windows open. So if you click in the header, right, you're going to have page numbers. So you see this page number bar here. I'm using Microsoft Word, and you all have access to Microsoft Word because it's free through the college. You have access to Microsoft 365. I like APA style likes the numbers in the upper right, starting with page 1, which is the title page, right? So that's in the header. You don't need anything in the footer, right? You need a title, so you're gonna space about 3 spaces or so, 3 or 4, and you're gonna put the title. I'll do 4 spaces. So something like correlates or clinical correlates of gambling behavior in undergraduates. Not too short, not too long. You do not want to copy the exact title I gave you here. You want to come up with your own title. Be somewhat creative, but also keep it to the fact that we're looking at, behavioral and clinical correlates of gambling. So we want this bolded, and generally I like this either in Times New Roman is fine. You can also put it in Arial, whatever one you want. I'll put it in Arial. Just not some fancy font that's like all over the place. You want it centered, so you're going to hit the centered button, right? So undergraduate, 12-point font. I put in Arial because I like Arial. Looks fairly basic. And then double space this whole thing, right? So my name. And if you have a degree, you would put your degree afterwards. I have a degree, but I'm just going to write my name here since you folks probably do not have the degree yet, most of you. This is Department of Social Sciences. And actually, my name in this could be not in bold, only the title in bold. So let me get rid of that. Only the title in bold. Department of Social Sciences, Borough of Manhattan, Community College. If you wanted to write City University of New York also, you could do that. But I'm just going to leave it because I don't have enough space to put City University of New York in there. The course, Site 65, Research in Psychology. Make sure psychology is capital. The instructor would be my name, obviously. So I'm both the author here and the instructor, but that's the instructor. And then the due date, which is going to be, it's going to vary the due date, but it's going to be, I think, the 26th. Something like that. And that's your title page. Now, you used to, in the previous APA style, the 6th edition, you used to have a running head up here, running header, and a short title. That has gone away with the new formatting, the 7th edition. So I'm no longer using the running head and the short title. You will use the short title on subsequent pages, right? So page 2 will be the abstract. And you will use subsequent, a running header on page, I mean, not running header, a short title on page 2. So when I get to page 2, you'll see that the page number is automatically there for 2. So you don't have to touch the page number once you put it in. It's going to be on every page, right? And then you're going to have a short title. The short title should be a shortened version of the full title. So I like the first 3 or 4 words of the full title. So clinical correlates of gambling. That's going to be my short title. It's going to be in all caps also. All caps. Right, so that's starting on page 2 here, clinical correlates of gambling, right? And then after that short title, whoops, what happened? This is going to be abstract. So give it a couple spaces for the word abstract. Make sure that's centered and in bold. This has got to be centered. So use the center tool, put it in bold, right? And now you're going to start the abstract. Now the abstract is a little bit more challenging. Now, just going back to this short title. This short title should be on every page in the upper left, except for the title page. This short title should be on every subsequent page of your manuscript, just like this. All caps, first few words of the full title. Should be on every page, and your page number should be on every page. But the short title has to be on every page, starting page 2 to the end. And if you wanted to put this in the header, you can. That makes your life easier. I can put it in the header if I want. Right? Problem with this is now it's going to be on the first page, and you're going to have to change this first page header, right? So there is a thing here, out here, where you can change the first page header. I have to find it. Let's see where the header thing is. Should be under layout. There is a function in Word here to change. Here's header. Just I have one where I can change the first page. I used to have that. So let's come back to that. I mean, you don't have to put it in the header. It just makes it a little easier. So leave it for now. And I won't put it in the header for now. I'll just put it here. But there is a way to change the header so it doesn't appear on the first page, but it appears on every other page. It might be a little tricky to do here, but I'm sure you can Google it. If you can't, just put it below the header like this, which is fine. Abstract. The abstract should be written after you've written everything else in the paper. It should be between 150 and 200 words. So I'd like the abstract to be about 150 words. That's generally the length of the abstract that most journals want you to submit. They do not want an overly long abstract. Sometimes you're asked to submit something shorter than 150 words, just because there's not enough space in all of these journals. There's not enough space to deal with long abstracts and also long articles. So there's always a space limitation. So when you write this abstract, it should be basically a summary of the entire study. And this is what your audience is going to read. They're going to look at the title and they're going to skim the abstract in like 20 or 30 seconds to determine whether or not they want to read your entire article, your entire manuscript. They're just going to skim the abstract because there's so many articles out there. When someone's doing their literature review, just like when you did your literature review, you were looking at abstracts and determining whether this abstract sounds like a paper you can use. So people read the abstract in about 20 seconds. They skim right through it. And so the abstract's got to be short, 150 words maximum, and to the point. Short and to the point. The first 2 or 3 sentences should talk about the main objective of the research study. Then you should have another one or 2 sentences describe the methodology. So the first 2 or 3 sentences is the introduction, basically. What's the point of the study? Why is it important? What are you looking for? Then you're going to have 1 or 2 sentences on the method. Then you're going to have 1 or 2 sentences on the results without statistical numbers, without data, just the results. You do not need to put statistics in the abstract. I prefer you don't. But basically, what was the conclusion of the study, right? And then 1 or 2 sentences elaborating on that. So 1 or 2 sentences at the end about the discussion, right? That's why you want to write the abstract last. So it's 2 to 3 introduction, 1 or 2 methodology, 1 or 2 results, 1 or 2 basically conclusions of the study. So go back to your individual pieces of the manuscript and go try to extract that for the abstract. And here's an example I've given you here. The effect of job stress on clinical health outcomes. Approximately 15 to 25% of the U.S. working population is classified as high risk for job stress. The type of stress is known to exert a psychological toll on workers. So this is kind of the beginning, the introduction stuff. And sort of what's the topic and why is it important? Topic is job stress. It's important because it exerts a psychological toll on workers. However, less is known about the impact of job stress on physical health and how current findings translate to clinically relevant outcomes in everyday life, such as susceptibility to the common cold. So this is the third sentence giving you the justification for the research. So job stress is difficult. It exerts a toll on people. But many people have not looked at the role of job stress on physical immunity, like to the common cold. So that justifies why you're doing the research. So you're going to do this with regard to the study we did on gambling. What is the study about? Why is it important? And what are we looking at? Well, we know it's important, right? Because the risk of gambling, pathological gambling, has increased a lot, a tremendous amount, say in the last 10 years, 10 or 15 years, in the younger population. And now with the legality of all the gambling apps on your phone, it's even easier than ever to develop a gambling problem early in life. And there hasn't been a lot of research looking at gambling risks or clinical correlates of gambling behavior, especially in an urban setting, right? Which BMCC is. So there's a lot going on. Why we wanted to look at correlates of gambling, even though we have a small sample right now. If we get a bigger sample, it's going to tell us important things that will help possibly address gambling problems in the future in the youth in the New York area. So that's 3 sentences. So you have to be really concise there to sort of put 3 sentences about the topic, why it's important, and what you're specifically studying. Now, going back to this example, in an ongoing diary study, 68 adults, 37 females, completed measures of job stress and upper respiratory infection symptoms every day for 8 weeks. That's the methodology. 1 sentence. If you need 2, you could use 2, but keep it under 150 words total. Preliminary analysis, this is going into the results. What are the results? Show that males who had busier days at work also endures greater number of upper respiratory infection symptoms, so like cold, flu, sinuses, etc., sore throat. Males also reporting lower perceived job security and less support were sick with upper respiratory infections on more days across the study than those with greater job security and supervisor support. So this idea of stress with no support leads to even more sickness in men. So that's an important gender difference. So these 2 sentences talk about the results. Now we want the conclusion. Actually, there's 3 sentences here because they're talking about females endorsing more busy days at home or work was also associated with greater endorsement of upper respiratory income symptoms. So these are 3. That's a little bit long for the results, but they had a lot of interesting results here. I would say try to keep it to 2 sentences. The findings expand our understanding of the links between job stress and immune functioning, and that's the conclusion of the study. So there's no specific conclusion here. It's just talking about how we gain more knowledge in this area. You could add another sentence there and make it a 2-sentence conclusion, but keep the whole abstract to 150 words or less. It is a somewhat tricky thing to write in such a short amount of sentences, but it's important. So that's the abstract. I expect that to be the toughest part of this assignment. So do your best and make sure you hit on all sections of the manuscript: the introduction, the method, the results, and the discussion. Now the references. So the references go at the end of the manuscript. So I'm not going to keep making pages. It's going to go at the end. So it's going to be page 10, something like that, page 15. Depends on how much you wrote in each section. You have written in each section. So how do we format the references? So here's for books. We're not really using books here. We are using journal articles. And most of these articles probably are going to be online these days. So you can have author, last name, first initial, middle initial, in parentheses, the year, period, right? Title of the article, period. Title of the journal in italics, comma, the volume in italics. If you have an issue number, the issue not in italics, the issue number not in italics, and the pages and the period. And you see an example for it here. Now, there's many ways to do the reference page. There are some bibliography based websites and services like RefWorks that people use to generate their reference page. There's something for free called Zotero, Zotero, that some people use to organize their research and generate their references. But if you have a small number of references for this paper, which you do, you should have a minimum of 5 but most people are not going to have pages and pages of references. So if you have a small amount of references, 5 or more, which you're required to have here, you can actually go into Google Scholar and get the APA formatting for these citations, for your references. So how do we do that? So we go into APA. Let's go into Google Scholar and let's look at APA style in that. Here's our Google Scholar, right? And let's say I'm looking for an article on gambling in college students, which is what we're looking at, right? And there's tons and tons of articles here. And let's say you used one of these articles. Let's say you use this article here, this PDF, Perceived Availability, Risk, and Benefits of Gambling Among College Students. Let's say this is something you used. You click on it. Here's the PDF, but you don't need the PDF. You want to click on it. You want to read the abstract. Right, here's the abstract. See how short the abstract is? If this sounds like something you wanted to use or you have used. So if you've used this article in the introduction so far, or you cited it. So you must have a reference entry for each article you've cited in the paper. So let's say you use this study. You need to give the reference. So let's go look at the citation. So go back here and you see this little quote here. This is double quote mark. This is citation. And you see the different citation formats. You want APA, American Psychological Association. So you're going to copy this. And then you're going to put you're going to have a reference page here at the end of your paper, end of your manuscript, right? It's going to be references. You're going to cite. And then you're just going to paste it in like this. You don't want it in bold though, right? So you just need to change the formatting here. So you have the authors, their first initial, their middle initial, right? You have multiple authors here. If you have 6 or more authors, you could just put the first author, first initial, mid initial, comma, et al, et period, al period. That means and others. But you could have 6 or more authors, and we don't have that here. The second and subsequent line of each reference entry must be indented. So we must indent here. So let me copy or cut and paste, right? Double space, just like that. And then you can cut and paste again. And there's your, now the major words of the name of the publication, name of the journal should be in capital letters. I don't know why they weren't here, but Journal of Gambling Studies should have capitalization. The minor words don't have capitalization. This is the issue volume. This is the issue. These are the page numbers. And you're done with this. Now, what you want to do is put this in alphabetical order, the reference entries by author's last name. It should all be in alphabetical order. Let's see what this paper looks like, the one we're citing here. We skim down to their references. Okay, so they haven't even centered this. It really depends on the journal, but this should be centered. Each journal will tell you exactly what they want, but this should be centered. And you can see how it's in alphabetical order by author last name. This is all in alphabetical order by author last name, just like we're doing here. So put it in alphabetical order by author's last name. So W will probably be towards the bottom. You should have a minimum of 5 references because you needed at least 5 for the introduction. So take the articles you used, go look them up in Google Scholar, and then just click on this quote here, and then you got your references. So this shouldn't be that bad to do. You just need to format the references. The second and the subsequent lines of each reference entry needs to be indented. Okay. And that should be easy. So the only hard part of this will be the abstract. The abstract will take you a little bit of time to work through. If you have any other specific questions, just email me. It shouldn't be that bad if you've written the other parts of the paper. And then you're going to submit it. Where are we going to submit it? So all this is under written assignments. And you're going to see this under written assignments. You're going to see title, abstract, references. You're going to submit a PDF for that. And then once you're done with this, I will give you feedback, right? And then you will revise all, if you haven't revised all your sections already, you will revise all the sections based on my feedback. And then you will submit that as one PDF file with the results that I wrote for you included. Okay, so I will post the results here because oh no, here they are. Here are the results. Spring 2026 results gambling survey. So you just copy and paste this in to your final paper, save it as a PDF, and upload the final revised paper here. I will then grade your revised paper to make sure that you're improving on the rough drafts. And then you'll have a final paper grade and you'll have a rough draft grade, and I will average those out. And that'll be your paper grade for the course, which is a big chunk of your final grade. And it should be relatively straightforward if you've been making the changes I suggest. Sometimes you don't need to make changes. I wrote to you, this looks good, no changes needed. That means you don't need to make any changes. But a lot of times you have to make changes. So make those changes. If you have questions about those changes, let me know. I'm available. And then submit this here by the date given. And then I will grade that, and that'll be your final assignment. So hopefully you learned a little bit about writing in APA style. You're getting a little bit more comfortable writing. I've been trying to give you some guidelines and instructions for writing to keep you on track. But if you have any questions, feel free, always reach out to me. I'm available through email. I'm available through Zoom. My office hours are on Friday. Just let me know what you want to do. Okay, so hopefully that helps you. If you have any more questions, you know where to find me. And bye for now. Hope you enjoyed the semester, and hope you'll enjoy your future in psychology if you choose to go down that path. Bye for now.